Welcome to Magic Mania, the Orlando Magic podcast, right here on the Five Reasons Sports Network. I'm your host, Jonathan. We got Josh right here with me, and we're coming at you live right after the Indiana Pacers defeated the Orlando Magic over there in Indiana. Orlando kept it close for a lot of the game, had a really big comeback in the second quarter after falling down double digits, but unfortunately, the star power caught up to them at the end. Tyrese Halliburton with some big closing shots, hitting some three-pointers towards the end, and the Orlando Magic just didn't have enough steam on that engine to be able to eke out enough offense to get the win. But I think there was a lot of positives that you could take out of tonight's win. I think that we saw and are continuing to see this team get better together, even without our star player or without the Magic star player in Paolo Banchero. But yeah, just still getting falling just a little short tonight. Josh, what did you see tonight out of this Magic team?
I saw some improvement on offense from the past 4 games. So I think Franz, he had 28, 8 and 6. That's a decent stat line for him. Then Goga, 29 minutes, 10, 12, 2. And then Suggs, he looked pretty decent. I mean, KCP really surprised me. 5 for 7 in the first half. He because I think a couple games back he was kind of in a shooting slump. So for him to kind of catch fire going into the half, I think they cut the score to within 3, and they look like they were on the track to win this one, especially against a team that there's a little bit of a beef, if you want to call it that, against the Pacers. So I think they first half they looked pretty strong, but it's honestly a tale of two halves, right? We saw the Pacers kind of just lock in on that second half, and then especially that fourth quarter, man, they just didn't let the Magic set up their offense, and kept them just one step behind, unfortunately. But I'm interested to see your opinions on the game.
Yeah, I felt like early in the game, the Magic really couldn't get their offense going, and I feel a big part of that was because let's see, what did the lead? The lead swelled up to 18 points for
Mm-hmm.
Indiana in that second quarter, and I feel like a big part of that was because the Magic just really couldn't get their offense. As we have Daniel Berry Sports Highlights joining us, what's going on, Daniel? I feel like the Magic couldn't get their offense going, and because of that, they were missing shots, causing easy transition buckets and mismatches on the defensive end for Indiana. And on the other side of things, because Indiana were making their shots and getting easy looks, their defense was set when it comes to on the other side of things for the Magic. So I felt like that was a little bit of a snowball effect at the beginning of the game, really getting that offense going. They couldn't seem to get it, but they started forcing turnovers. They started getting active with the hands, and they started attacking the paint. And that was when I believe this team was at its best tonight. Was when they were attacking the paint. I think we saw really good drives from Anthony Black. I mean, he is really good at the rim. I like what I see when Jalen Suggs takes it to the rim too. He's a pretty solid finisher as well. And you have a lot of lengthy guys that can finish around the rim outside of maybe Goga, right? But outside of him, you have a lot of guys that can finish around the rim. The Magic are 29th in points in the paint. I need that number to go up if this team wants to continue to improve and make a playoff push, even without Paolo. But I do think it was, good improvement to see them not just fold in the second quarter after going down that big. So that shows progress for the team there. But I think when it comes down to late in the game, they couldn't find the offense they were looking for. The execution wasn't there. They were using a multitude of different guys to bring the ball up. I mean, we had Jalen being the primary. We had Franz kind of as one of the secondary. And then a couple of times as well, we saw even Tristan da Silva bring the ball up, right? I think probably the point guard of the night, Anthony Black, he's the guy that's continuing to impress and continuing to improve, getting multiple and ones and good assists in that fourth quarter to really try to keep things close regardless of everything else. But it was too little too late when it comes to that Magic spurt and kind of what they were doing. And like I said earlier, Tyrese Halliburton, instead of attacking that screen heavily, they went under, or they didn't really attack that screen as much. He had an open top shot at the top of the key, turned it from a 1 to a 4-point game, and essentially from there, that was pretty much it. But that's
Yeah.
kind of what I saw there. Now, you mentioned KCP, right? Contavious
Mhm.
Caldwell-Pope. Do you believe this was his best game in a Magic uniform?
From what I've seen so far, I'd say yes. I think he started out a little slow. Uh, in the last 5 games, he had one where it's like 1 for 7, so kind of cold. And I think he's going through an adjustment period with a new team. This was probably his best performance in a Magic jersey so far. So I think that's definitely a plus going forward, and I want to see more of that.
And I think something I was really looking at as I was watching these games on mute while I was at work,
Mhm.
KCP did a really good job with his defensive rotations tonight. I felt like that's where I saw a lot of the improvement was he wasn't covering, just one person. There was one play where he covered one corner and the rotation essentially was set to where he had to rotate three separate guys back instead of hesitating at all. He knew exactly where to go to rotate back all the way to that far corner, cutting off that corner three. So I'm seeing a lot of the gel and the mesh coming in with him in the defense offensively. I mean, like you said, I do think tonight was his best game on both sides of the court, but he was the only Magic starter that was a net positive when it comes to the plus minus tonight. So that is very interesting to see. Outside of that, the only other person was Jonathan Isaac with a +1. Everybody else was in the negative. Now, with his game improving, I think this is something that's really encouraging for Magic fans, especially knowing he was their kind of key signing. We had a lot of extensions this offseason, but he was really their key signing that we brought in to help bring that team a little bit over the edge. And I think we saw just a little bit of that tonight. Now, the young guys, right? Let's talk about Tristan da Silva. Let's talk about Anthony Black. And yeah, I think maybe let's talk about those two guys, and then we'll talk about Franz and Jalen after. But when it comes to the two younger guys, and Anthony Black and Tristan da Silva, what were some of the positives that you saw out of those guys? And we'll get to the negatives after.
Definitely more playing time. Tristan da Silva had 23 minutes. Anthony Black had 26. And to your point, Anthony Black looked great out there. Handling the ball. Didn't get scared in the moment. And I think you need that confidence in a young player. I mean, the guy's in his second year in the NBA, and he's on a team that is down a star player, down a starting center. So everyone's locking into that next man up mentality, and I think he showed us what he can deliver to this team. 4 for 6 from field goal. I mean, that's what you want at the end of the day. But again, young guy on a team that is again missing their star player. So I think his effort definitely helped us in certain stretches, but also there comes that I guess just getting a feel for the game, second year player and all that. And then Tristan da Silva, he looked pretty good out there. I'd say what 2 for 4, 1 for 2 on threes. I mean, he looked good. What were your thoughts on Tristan da Silva's game?
Yeah, so for Da Silva, I really didn't feel like this was his best game, actually. I felt like this was one of the games where he showed his youth, reaching in on a lot of bad fouls, getting caught in a lot of in between positions tonight. I do feel like tonight was one of his weaker games when it comes to that. Indiana is always tough defensively, right? So you know what you're going to kind of expect going into an Indiana team, regardless. But yeah, I felt like he just didn't feel like it seemed like he had his footing tonight when it comes to on the court and being able to find his spots. Like you said, 2 of 4, got a 3 off, right? So always good to see him, hit a threes or hit his threes. But 3 fouls, I think the fouls that he picked up were kind of cheap as well. They weren't really good fouls. Like sometimes you'll take a good foul to give up an easy bucket, but
Right.
those were fouls where people weren't in maybe the best scoring position anyways. So that foul wasn't necessarily the best, but as far as Anthony Black goes, I think for him, continuing just to show his growth, right? 6 assists tonight, tied with leading the team with Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner, continuing to show that he can off the bench bring that playmaking. And I think that's going to be really key when you have two guys that can play make pretty well with Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner coming off that. You want a guy coming off the bench that can still add on to that, right? And still
Right.
can create, still can also get to the rim, add different layers to the game. So that's just something that I love to see from him. Negatively, I didn't really see too much bad out of Anthony Black. I felt like, his defensively, his footing was there. I mean, he did have 4 personal fouls. So, yeah, I mean, that's something you'll want to shore up as well, that, with that side of things. But I just think overall he had a pretty solid games. Now, Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner, I feel did really great tonight. Honestly, I think they both had really good games. They had spots where they could have done a little bit better, but I felt like both those guys did really well. Obviously, I think Jalen's going to want to give you just a hair more, right? As one with Paolo being out, I think 15 and 6, 15, 6 and 5. I mean, that's still a good stat line, darn. But still want you to just have a little bit more when it comes to that side of things. Thoughts on those two guys, and just what did you see from them tonight?
They looked good. I mean, all things considered, they looked good, but again, it's still a loss, right? But I think focusing on the positives, I think they gelled, and I think ultimately you're still trying to cover a gap in not having Paolo, man. I feel like this game, if Paolo was there, I think they win it. I honestly do. And that's kind of the hard part. It's just guys are just trying to fill in.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, I mean, if you add him there, I mean, it's not even, NBA math doesn't necessarily work this way because those points would accrue to somebody else. But I mean, it was a 1-point game with less than 5 minutes to go, essentially, right? When you have Paolo there in the game, someone who can attack the rim, someone who can draw defenders away from other players as well. I mean, that's just something that you're missing coming to tonight.
Yeah.
But I do feel this team was able to just kind of take a lot of positives out of tonight, even with the loss, right? I think these are moral victories in a way. I think as a Magic team, you might want this one back just because you had it close at the end of the fourth quarter, and that's all you can ask for. When you're a team down your star player, all you ask for is a shot, right? Keep it close within the last couple minutes. Unfortunately, they couldn't capitalize on that shot, and they were unable to pick up the win tonight when it comes to that. But I do still think with just seeing Franz scoring as much as he did, I do want him to see him hit a little bit more of those inside shots at a little bit of a higher clip. I felt like there was a couple of bunnies that he missed there, so I do want to see that touch get added. But I think he did a great job with his playmaking as well, being a secondary facilitator for the team. But Jalen Suggs, I do want to see just a hair more out of that. Final thoughts on the game before we close out here tonight, man.
It's I think they're still trying to find their flow. They look good, like you said, they look good at some points, and then some points you're like, oh man, just a little bit better, and this game becomes a win. So I think moving forward, they continue to adjust and find the right tempo for this, the makeup of this current squad. And I think again, just focus on the positives. These guys, they're professionals at the end of the day. They're going to look at film. They're going to see, okay, we could have swung the ball here, and that creates the opportunity, and probably work a little bit better on the defensive end. And I think with just the optimistic mindset, they break down the film, and they make adjustments. I believe they're playing New Orleans, the Pelicans, in Orlando. So the energy of the Kia Center. Hopefully the fans are out there, and they can be the sixth man there. So I think to focus on the positives, and guys were knocking down shots where they could, and just improve a little bit better on defense, and try to get that win at home.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a team that's this team is going to be one that sorely misses being at home, right? They've only had a couple of home games to begin this season so far. So that Magic impact with that home crowd being as passionate as they are should have a good effect on it. And I agree with you in whole, honestly, bro. Like there was a couple of parts where, this team could have fill that gap, right, and potentially close that window when it comes to the Pacers getting that win. But still a young team, still a team missing their star, and still a team figuring out how to overcome missing that star. So a lot to ask for this team here, but it's still exciting to see them compete with such high level playoff teams, even without their star player. And I think that's one thing you're going to want to take out of this, and just kind of see what the development, the extra time those young players are getting to develop is only going to help more.
Oh, yeah,
So for that,
100%.
guys, it's been an awesome time with everybody. Make sure you guys like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff when it comes to us. And Josh, how do we end these shows, my man?
Go Magic.
Let's go, man.